first 3 parts have been a lot to take in, so let's go over the story of Littlefinger again, but this time in chronological order. Littlefinger grows up with Cat and Lysa, where he falls for Cat and Lysa falls for Littlefinger. Littlefinger and Cat play Jenny of Oldstones, and Littlefinger decides that she is the Queen of Beauty. Her hotness, her red hair, and her family connection to Harrenhal seem to convince Littlefinger. However, Catelyn is betrothed to Brandon Stark, and so Littlefinger challenges Brandon to a duel. Now it would be almost impossible for Littlefinger not to see the parallels between this situation and Bael the Bard. Baelish is trying to steal a beautiful flower from Brandon Stark. Now this duel didn't go the way Baelish planned, so he has to rethink his strategy. He must become the Deceiver. Now Catelyn ends up marrying Eddard, but it would still be almost impossible for Baelish not to see the parallels between his story and Bael the Bard. Baelish is trying to steal a beautiful flower, Lady Stark, from the Lord of Winterfell, and so his planning begins. He manipulates Lysa Tully to help him in his career, and he eventually rises to Master of Coin. Littlefinger starts embezzling money and beggaring the realm, knowing that if the Braavosi call in their loans, he'll be there to bail people out and save the day. Money, power, and allies are always a good thing, but I imagine the specifics of Littlefinger's plan came when he found out about the incest. Jaime and Cersei's incest show that war in Westeros was inevitable, and during war, lordships are granted. So this is Littlefinger's opportunity to get Harrenhal, which is linked to his Queen of Beauty. However, Littlefinger is no knight, and he has no armies. He is Master of Coin, though, which means he controls the Gold Cloaks. But for the Gold Cloaks to come into play, war needs to be in King's Landing. Littlefinger needs a coup, and who better to lead a coup than Eddard Stark? He's easy to read, easy to predict, and he already hates the Lannisters. But to get Eddard to come to King's Landing, he knows he has to get rid of Jon Arryn. And so Littlefinger spreads a rumor of incest, knowing that Jon Arryn will want to get Sweet Robin out of King's Landing. This gives Lysa a motive to kill Jon Arryn, which Littlefinger asks her to do. As expected, Robert chooses Ned to replace Jon Arryn, but Littlefinger wants to ensure that Ned comes to King's Landing, and so Littlefinger has Lysa send a letter to Catelyn blaming the murder of Jon Arryn on the Lannisters. It works swimmingly, but while Ned is traveling to King's Landing, Bran is attacked. Catelyn comes to King's Landing threatening Littlefinger's plans, but Littlefinger sweeps the whole thing under the rug by blaming it on Tyrion. Littlefinger then sends Ned Stark, Super Sleuth, to Jon Arryn's servants and Jon Arryn's squire. Littlefinger likely has Sir Hugh killed to make Ned mistrust the Lannisters more, but then Littlefinger runs into Sansa. Watching Loras crown Sansa Queen of Beauty makes Littlefinger change his mind. Sansa simply fits the story better than Cat. Baelish is trying to steal a beautiful flower, Lady Stark, the daughter of Lord Winterfell, from Lord Winterfell. At some point, he'll need to kidnap this girl. Meanwhile, Ned is not doing that well at discovering the incest and is about to leave King's Landing. With Varys suggesting an attack on Daenerys, Littlefinger knows that Varys is accelerating his plans. War is coming soon. And so Littlefinger takes Ned to Shataya's brothel, keeping Ned in town just a little bit longer and hoping he'll figure out the incest. Littlefinger lucks out and Jaime cripples Ned, keeping him in town. Ned finally figures out the incest and comes to Littlefinger about a coup. Ned is rather uncooperative and insists that Stannis is king, and so Littlefinger goes to the Lannisters. Littlefinger arranges to have Harrenhal given to his crony, Janos Slynt. And Slynt, his gold cloaks, and Ilyn Payne kill Ned. I'm guessing Ned was killed because Varys was interested in him. So at the end of a Game of Thrones, Littlefinger must be pretty pleased with himself. He successfully tricked the Lord of Winterfell into coming to King's Landing and starting a coup. And he puts Harrenhal in the hands of his crony. Not to mention Sansa, his Queen of Beauty, is close by. But then Tyrion marches into town and simply takes Harrenhal away from Janos Slynt. Additionally, the Stokeworths are courting people besides Littlefinger, which can threaten his death schemes. For a brief period of time, Tyrion offers Littlefinger Harrenhal for Lysa Tully's support. This may seem inconsequential, but it actually affects Littlefinger's plan, as right after being offered Harrenhal, he sends Dantos to Sansa. So when Tyrion reneged on Harrenhal, the Dantos plan had to be delayed as well. This is why Dantos seemingly twiddles his thumbs for 2 books. Things are looking rough for Littlefinger's plan, and so Littlefinger decides to create a new conflict, this time in the Reach. He has the Crown insult House Florent, which sends them over to Stannis. To counter this, the Crown feels it needs House Tyrell, and Littlefinger convinces everyone that he should broker the deal. While he's gone, he organizes the Riot of King's Landing, where he has Lolly Stokeworth raped, He kidnaps Tyrek Lannister, and he tries to kidnap Sansa Stark. Littlefinger pretty much incriminates himself on this one, as his men supply grisly details about the riot to the Tyrells, despite the fact that they supposedly already left the city. Littlefinger successfully brings over the Tyrells, and convinces Garland Tyrell to dress up like Renly. This makes Garland into a bit of a war hero, and Florent lands and incomes are seized and given to him. This creates tension in the Reach, and may cause money troubles to anyone that has links to the Florents. While he's gone, Littlefinger also has Mandon Moore try to kill Tyrion, but he fails. Littlefinger successfully gets Harrenhal back, but he needs to work on getting Sansa. So Littlefinger has Dantos give Sansa a hairnet made of the Strangler, and then convinces Olenna Tyrell to use that hairnet to kill Joffrey. In the chaos, Dantos makes away with Sansa, and then Littlefinger kills Dantos. Littlefinger then hides Sansa in the Vale as his daughter, Alayne Stone. And Littlefinger marries and kills Lysa to gain temporary control of the Vale. Littlefinger uses his embezzled fortune to buy up debt, gain allies, and gain wards. So what now? Littlefinger has Sansa, he has Harrenhal, he has money, he has allies. What is he going to do next? Well, A Feast for Crows ends with Littlefinger claiming that he's going to marry Sansa to Harry the Heir. Once Sweet Robin dies, Harry the Heir will become the head of the Vale, and all of the Vale lordlings will rally around Sansa and fight to reclaim Winterfell. Now, it's almost comical how many things are wrong with this supposed plan. First off, Sweet Robin is alive and kicking. The only way to know when Sweet Robin is actually going to die is to murder him. Is Sansa really going to let Littlefinger murder a small child? Especially a small child as utterly awesome as Sweet Robin? We've been given every indication that Sweet Robin is weak and sickly, which means in the world of Ice and Fire, he's probably indestructible. Second, Winterfell is a ruin and doesn't really represent home for Sansa anymore because all of her friends are dead. This seems like a lot of trouble for sentimentality, especially considering third, it's winter. Those lands aren't producing any incomes, and it's honestly the worst time to invade. Fourth, the North is held by either Stannis or the Boltons, who have support from the Iron Throne. Both of these groups already have plans for the North. Taking Winterfell makes a lot of enemies. Fifth, Rickon, Bran, and whoever Robb named as his heir all have a better claim to Winterfell. Is Sansa really going to go against her brother Rickon in war? Sixth, Harry's claim is questionable. If we've learned anything from Ice and Fire, it's that inheritance is messy. We know that there are several other branches of Arryns in the Vale. Any one of them could claim they have a better right to the lordship than Sweet Robin's aunt's daughter's son. Seventh, Sansa is already married. Unless Littlefinger can get the High Septon to set her marriage aside, or if he can kill Tyrion, she can't marry Harry the Heir. But of course, the biggest thing that's wrong with the plan is that Littlefinger totally wants to bang Sansa. Is he really going to marry her off to Harry the Heir? Winterfell seems impossibly out of reach for Sansa, and Sansa's prospects for inheriting Harrenhal are also not great. After the Wents, the castle should pass to Edmure, Edmure's child, Bran, Rickon, or Robb's heir. Of course, there is one easy way to get Harrenhal: marry Littlefinger. Although this is clearly what Littlefinger wants, there are two big problems with it. First, again, Sansa is already married to Tyrion. But more importantly, a marriage to Littlefinger loses his Vale allies. Sansa can't exactly marry both Harry the Heir and Littlefinger. But there is one way to marry Harry the Heir and get Harrenhal, and that way is through Alayne Stone. Alayne Stone, if legitimized, inherits Harrenhal, and this would explain why the Waynwoods want to marry Alayne. Harry isn't marrying down, he's marrying up. That is, if Alayne is legitimized. And I'd like to point out that it's ironic that Sansa is being wielded in a new form, just like Brienne's sword and Brienne's shield. And what's great about Alayne is that she's single, and once she serves her purpose, she can just wash her hair and become Sansa again. No High Septon would be needed to set aside her marriage to Harry the Heir. Which brings us back to Stannis. Now in part 1 I talked about how Littlefinger has a lot of things Stannis wants. He has access to Westeros through the Vale, he has tapestries and Maya Stone that prove Stannis' legitimacy, he has lots of money, and he has Vale allies. But what on earth does Stannis have that Baelish could want? Well, I can think of a few things that Littlefinger might want. He might want to keep Harrenhal, he might want Stannis to legitimize Alayne, he may ask for Shireen to marry someone like Sweet Robin, or for her to be warded, and he may ask for the Feast for Crows that is the Riverlands. If Stannis prevails, Lannister and Frey holdings at the Twins, Riverrun, and Derry would become vacant. Those rewards would be quite a motivation for the Vale lordlings, especially if Sweet Robin were married to the true legitimate heir, Shireen. But all this extra wheeling and dealing is kind of irrelevant. We know that Littlefinger and the Vale are bonded through debt, and we know that the Iron Bank and Stannis are bonded through debt. The only thing that's in question is if these two Braavosi entities of Littlefinger and the Iron Bank are in league. If they are, a Vale-Stannis Alliance seems likely, and Harrenhal is on the way to King's Landing from the Vale. So plot-wise, it seems like Sansa is heading towards Harrenhal and not Winterfell. If she does make it to Harrenhal, she would be embracing her matrilineal roots of House Went and maybe House Lawston before them. Is Sansa becoming a new Mad Danelle Lawston? Well, red-haired Danelle used to collect children with her giant bats, and Littlefinger has been collecting wards. And if Littlefinger happens to die, Alayne becomes Lady Harrenhal. Or if Sansa marries Littlefinger, she becomes Lady Harrenhal. But there is the problem of Tyrion. Sansa is married to him after all. And why on earth is Harrenhal so darn important? And why did Littlefinger even mess around with a drunk like Dantos? We'll talk about all of these in Part 5.